Hello, Zenith here. Today I'm going to be talking about transforms. So you're probably asking right now, what is a transform? Well, we want it so every game object has a transform. Currently, we have it set up so every game object has individual coordinates. So we want to put this data into a class called transform. And a transform holds three types of data. It holds the game object's position, the game object's rotation, and the game object's scale. So instead of having coordinates, let's just take all this away and implement a transform. So function transform. Okay, so every object will have a transform. Oops. There we go. Now, instead of having it so the transform has an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate, we're going to make another class called vector2. So a vector2 will have a x and a y coordinate. So now every transform will have a position, which will be a new vector2. Okay, another thing we will need is a rotation. So we're just going to set this to 0. We don't actually need a class for rotation, since we are on a 2D perspective. It can really only rotate on one axis. And that's pretty much... Oh, and we need a scale. So a scale will also be a vector2. So since vector2 takes 2 parameters, we're going to need to set these. So by default, let's just set the position to be 50-50, and the scale needs to be 1 and 1. So by default, it's the regular scale. Okay, so up here you can see that we do the object's x, but now every object has a transform, which has a position, which has a vector2, which then has a x-coordinate. So we need to make this do transform the position. Okay, there we go. Now we need to go over another thing. So how we've been doing it for the last little bit is it's been drawing the rectangle at specific positions, but P5 actually has something that can handle this a lot easier. So you use the function called translate. So instead of having it like this, we will use the translate function, and then down here we can just put 0, 0. So even though we put the x and y coordinate to be 0, it's still going to be at the object's position because we're using this translate function. We are also going to need to use the rotate function to rotate the drawing rotation to be equal to the rotation of the object. And yeah, so like I was saying, the rotate function, it takes an angle, and whatever the angle is, it rotates the whatever you're drawing. The rotation of that drawn object will be relative to this whatever you set here. And we'll also need to do a scale, which will be objects. I'll just copy it and paste it. scale. Oh, and since scale takes two parameters, we're going to do scale.x and scale.y because the scale is a vector too. Okay, and there is one more thing that we need to do because if we do this and draw the rectangle, basically how translate works is it doesn't set the position, it adds to the position. So every frame we're going to be adding this position. Same with the rotate, we're going to be adding rotations and adding scales. So what we want to do is use some built-in functions called push and pop. So what this does is it creates a new position and rotation and scale. It sets all those values to 0 until we call pop. Then it goes back to the original. So if originally the translate and rotation and scale was equal to whatever, this is going to set that all to 0. So for every game object, it's going to create a new set of positions, positions, rotations, and scales. So you need this. If you don't do that, you'll get some really weird results. Okay, now that we have that all set up, I'm pretty sure we can run this. Oh, and just to test this, oh, and I think we're going to remove this move function. Instead, we'll just directly modify the position. So, object.transform.position.x plus, x plus equals 1. And we're going to also do object.transform rotation, oh, I can't spell, rotation plus equals 0.05f, not f, sorry. Rotations are a bit more sensitive than positions, so I need to lower it so it doesn't really quickly rotate. If we run this, we should have a square. Okay, we didn't. Let me see what I did wrong here. Oh, here we go. I put transform. That's better. If we run this, surely enough, we have a square rotating, but you'll notice one issue here. It's rotating from the top corner, but we want it to rotate from the center. When drawing the rectangle, we want to draw the positions to be -25, which is half of the width and height of the square. So now it's going to keep on drawing it at the center, so as you can see here, it rotates around the center. And to test the scale, we'll also make it so the transform.scale equals new vector 2, and we're going to say object.transform.scale.x, and then object.transform.scale.y, and we're going to do plus 0.05f, plus 0.05. Without the F. I'm so sorry, I keep on getting that mixed up. And if you're wondering why I'm doing that, in languages like Java, well, most C-like languages, to declare a decimal number, you'll need to put an F after it or you'll get an error. But in JavaScript, that's not the case. Now, if we run this, it scales up. It's a little bit much, so I'll turn this down quite a bit. And yeah, it's working. Well, that is transforms. So we can easily edit the position, rotation, and scale with these simple variables. Well, that is about it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.